Let's get into this a little bit. Jordan Addison yesterday gave his apology publicly to the media for the driving. Didn't get into details about it.
Ongoing legal situation.
Ongoing legal matter. He can't get into the dog emergency. Justin Jefferson spoke later in the day and talked about mentorship, how he wants to be to Addison what Thielen was to him. The Thielen-Jefferson dynamic was, I don't know, it was just perfect. It just worked. I think the age gap was big. There's like 9 years apart in age. It was just, they were very clearly in the right roles. And Jefferson was kind of a sponge. He was open to it. And Thielen was very, I think, generous with his time. And the Vikings kind of orchestrated this. They just put them together, and there was a clear passing of the torch in some way. At different vibe, I think, with Addison, and maybe it'll work out great too. Maybe Jefferson is just the ultimate mentor. He hasn't really been in this role too much yet. But again, we got a first-round pick and a first-round pick closer in age. Addison surely has very high aspirations and maybe feels like he can never usurp Jefferson. He's always going to be a number 2. How do you think that dynamic's going to work out, Luke Inman?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we shouldn't have anything less than high expectations for these two. I mean, I guess if the question is a matter of Addison not having a 30-year-old veteran in the room to help guide and teach him, the little nuances, I get that. I want to say Thielen was in year 7 when JJ showed up. And now, obviously, JJ being the veteran and mentor of the group is only entering year 4. But you look around the league, and there's examples of young, great, successful duos at the position. I think about the Bengals, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
That's exactly what my brain went to, the Bengals, yeah.
Yeah, right? I mean, Philly's an easy one, too. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I think talent's talent at the end of the day, and Addison has all the raw talent to be not only the NFL, but knowing firsthand one-on-ones than most guys in the league. And even outside of playing with JJ, right across from him, you also got Hawkinson, a top 5 tight end in the league. And most importantly, too, you got a veteran quarterback who knows now in year 2 of a quarterback-friendly system and, an offensive head coach that we've already seen can scheme guys open when needed. I think as good as Thielen and JJ was, right, given this offense and his supporting cast now, I see no reason why Addison couldn't become the next great complementary piece inside KOC's passing game.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important kind of dynamic to talk about and discuss. But I do think that you're right that, it's not that important that Addison might never be able to kind of overtake that wide receiver 1 spot. And you never know, right? Randy Moss overtook Chris Carter. I mean, it's a thing that happens sometimes, right? But it's also not, awful, right? When Tyreek Hill was traded to Miami, Jalen Waddle, I believe, had already had 1 year under his belt, right? Waddle, I think, had an understanding that he'd be wide receiver 1 until that trade had occurred, and now he's just wide receiver 2. It sounds like, based off of what, we know about that situation, he's perfectly fine with it, right? When the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase to play next to T. Higgins, everyone was fine, right? T. Higgins wasn't as dominant, right, as Jefferson was, but I think people forget he had a remarkably good rookie year. He had a very good rookie year, right? And then Chase shows up, right? When it's Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, they trade for A.J. Brown. Devonta Smith now has to play kind of second fiddle, but kind of not really. We don't know. And Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, there's a larger age difference there. That's more the Thielen Jefferson dynamic. But, Metcalf had the capacity to overtake Lockett. In my opinion, that hasn't happened. I still think Lockett is a more productive and capable receiver, but it is something that, happens. And it sounds like the two of them are very, they're great teammates, right? And so that it doesn't bother me. You could always say like, hey, maybe Addison is a guy that needs a little bit more guidance, or is a guy that kind of craves the spotlight a little bit more. I think those are things that are based off of very small slices of information that we have about him. We can't know that based off of, how he acted at the draft or this one incident. you're just not going to know enough about a player based off of news stories like that. So we can't say that that's the case, but we can say it is possible that he's just a different personality type than all of these other receivers, right? Like Mike Wallace did not love, that Antonio Brown got a ton of attention, right? Like he didn't. That's just who Mike Wallace was, right? So it's always possible. But I think more likely than not, it's going to work out. I think that if Addison is talented enough to be a really, really high level receiver, right? In most systems, he'd be a wide receiver 1. Maybe that level of talent is what we're talking about. If he is, I think it'll work out just fine.
You brought up the Seattle wide receiver room. I just want to remind everybody.
The guy too.
DK Metcalf is only 25 years old. Feels like he's going on year 7 or 8, but 25 years old. So let's just say Lockett got traded, or maybe he's not around next year. That's kind of the same scenario now with Jackson Smith and Jigba in town, the Ohio State first-round receiver.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In the same scenario.
The 2 press conferences yesterday, 3 hours apart, could not have been more different. Addison at about 1:15, I'm sure he was nervous. He's first big press conference of training camp, and he's got a million cameras in his face, and he's got to apologize for this mistake that he made and take questions about it and try to follow the script that he was coached on by PR and not say anything incriminating. And of course it's going to be like, obviously not a good look. Like it's not going to come across great, especially when you're not super media trained.
I do wonder about the ongoing legal situation phrase. Like, is something going on beyond the citation? Like, that's just a ridiculous thing to say in my brain.
I would agree. I think it's the easy out. It prevents further questions on it. We kind of know how this game works.
Yeah.
But then 3 hours later, Justin Jefferson just has the Midas touch right now. There's nothing that he can say, and I think he's just very naturally gifted.
Yes.
In this regard, like
extremely charismatic.
He says all the right things about his contract. He seems very selfless when he says it. The way he talks about Kirk, the way he can like very charmingly downplay, oh yeah, he wasn't in my top 5, but Kirk's my guy. Like stuff like that. He said,
and you believe it. That's the thing about Jefferson.
It's
like,
very authentic. Yeah. And he said both of these things he said in that press conference. I love being the face of the league. I love the pressure on me. And I think he believes that too. He's just like, he's fitting, I should say, fame and success looks good on Justin Jefferson right now.
Which contrasts, by the way, with how you felt Diggs' personality changed after he got that second contract.
Yes.
Which technically Jefferson has not received a second contract yet, so we can't say one for one this is alike. But I mean, as charismatic as Diggs is, and he's remarkably charismatic, Jefferson has all kinds of endorsement money right now that Diggs maybe should have gotten in Minnesota when he was in Minnesota, but like clearly he's just not out there with like as many brand deals or endorsements, at least to my eye, that I can see as Jefferson.
Diggs had a good CenturyLink commercial.
Yeah,
remember that one?
Which that was a weird one. I'm gonna just put that out there. It wasn't like weird bad. It was just like, is this how you're going to use this guy? All right. But just like a tiny guy next to a remote. Okay, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it could be the case that Jefferson has earned enough money for us to say that money has not quite changed him, or if it's changed him, has not changed him for the worse. Right. So these are all possibilities. I remember, a lot of people are like, but when Jefferson gets paid, he's going to do the exact same stuff Diggs did. And it's like, I don't know. People are different than other people. I think it's fair to say that one person is not like another person, even though they're in the same situation. So I'm excited by this. I don't believe Jefferson when he says, he's not fond of money, but I do believe that money is not a huge pressure point for him.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that, but you mentioned sponsorship deals. I don't know if this made it on the final cut of the Vikings, like posting the press conference, but someone asked him about his sunglasses and he said, and I think they just asked him if like, are those new sunglasses? And he said, oh, these are Oakley's. I'm sponsored by Oakley and they want me to wear them as often as I can. Everyone laughs. Everyone loves him.
What a natural.
It's unbelievable.
How much did Fortnite pay him, by the way? I got to know.
Oh, my gosh. Those numbers out there?
I wish.
That's That's hilarious.